Encountering extreme resistance! Require artillery support!
Deploy tanks now. Ground forces have been neutralized. Immediate reinforcement!
General! We are afraid!
You have miscalculated!
On your positions! Who is behind all this?
Command and Conquer. Red Alert. The ultimate strategy game for your PC.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Look, I can't help it if it's another year of sequels, guys, and this one might be one of the strongest sequels in video game history. But wait, you say, perplexed and blinking. This cannot be Command & Conquer 2. We saw what Command & Conquer 2 looked like in that promo video they put in the first one. It was a sci-fi future thing with a big mech suit. I remember him being a mechanical man.
I am a mechanical man. I'm a mechanical man.
Well, that might have been the original intent, but Westwood Studios were keen to make a new real-time strategy game set in the Second World War as their next project, and the enormous success of Command & Conquer made it too tempting to use the name. There are some reports that Westwood were also pretty nervous about making the World War II baddies a playable faction, and this led to the development of an alternate history storyline where the Soviet Union clashed with the Allied powers instead. Once the decision was made for the game to carry the name Command & Conquer, they were free to include some fun links to the original, including having Joe Kukan reprise his role as the mysterious Kane, appearing as an advisor to Stalin, and sending nerds like me into frantic theory crafting about how the Brotherhood of Nod would come out of all this.
Comrade Chairman, I am the future.
So the awesome video cutscenes return, with new characters including your man there, and the game took on the form of an alternate history prequel to the original, with Albert Einstein going back in time to kill Hitler. This changes history so that the Soviet Union rise to conquer Europe, opposed only by the Allied nations, with the Brotherhood of Nod apparently hiding in the shadows waiting to pick up the pieces. I found this story so fascinating, and I wasn't alone. Alternate histories are always interesting intellectual exercises, and as World War II is one of the main pieces of history you learn in school, we were all totally engrossed in the idea of things playing out a different way. Additionally, despite having a setting so closely linked to the real war, and containing actual historical characters, Red Alert managed to take on a slightly lighter tone than the original. Don't get me wrong, Stalin is correctly portrayed as the monster he was, and there's no sugarcoating the Soviet atrocities. Their opening mission has you exterminating an entire village of civilians. But over the whole runtime, the acting does seem to be a little more campy, and the alternate history allows for some very broad stereotyping of nationalities and archetypes that ultimately result in a more B-movie feel than the original's attempt at an earnest modern war story. It's not entirely allo as it would go on to resemble in later entries.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
But come on, Gunther von Essling and Nikos Stavros, actual character names, provide the touchstone for the Allied campaign. Do you want to guess where those gentlemen hail from?
You couldn't speak German because it's a horrible sound. It sounds like typewriters eating tinfoil being kicked down the stairs. And
The gameplay feels largely the same at first, though with some obvious streamlining improvements. You can select groups of units and assign them to a number key now, so you can quickly switch between different squads in different places or for different purposes, making those all-out blitzkriegs potentially slightly more nuanced, if you're into that kind of thing. You can also queue up units to be produced in sequence, provided they're made by different facilities, meaning you can have a tank building at the same time as a minigunner is training, all while a helicopter is on order for the new helipad. That doesn't sound like a massive change, but it's amazingly helpful in the heat of battle. One of the biggest additions here though was the use of seafaring units, so now you can build a naval dockyard and deploy destroyers if you're the Allies, or submarines if you're the Soviets. Obviously this added a whole new dimension to the gameplay balance and allowed for more varied maps. It factored into the Rochambeau between the factions, as naval warfare was a big strength for the Allies, with their ground units actually being more like nods in terms of being cheaper, faster, but weaker. Here it's the Soviets who can tank damage, literally in the case of the awesome Mammoth tank that you might remember belonging to GDI in the original. But they're slow and they require more resources to make stuff. All of this made the game a worthy sequel, of course, and it's considered a good improvement on a solid foundation. But there's another reason I found this game so appealing. We haven't talked much about the big box PC games yet in this series, and I'm going to save most of that discussion for a game we're going to cover in the next episode. But suffice to say here that PC games of this era carried an enormous sense of value, in part due to their distribution in large cardboard boxes. These were far bigger than the plastic cases console games came in. In the case of the PlayStation's small CD cases, much bigger. And it lent them a sense of importance and, dare I say, superiority. This is a foolish and childish association, but I was a foolish child, and so it was the perfect way to appeal to me. In the case of Red Alert, they released 2 expansion packs for the game, Counter-Strike and Aftermath. For young people watching, expansion packs were just DLC that came in its own box. You still needed to have the original to play them, but it felt like you were getting something for your money. These were mission packs with brand new scenarios, and although there weren't any new video cutscenes included, which frankly was a bit disappointing, those would be added into the PlayStation port named Retaliation, it still did feel like you had to have the whole lot to experience the entire game. Oh yes, they've been playing that psychological trick on us forever. But it was more than that, it's actually the physical boxes I remember the most, especially as you could buy all 3 together in a mega bundle, all cellophaned together end to end, in a gargantuan show of just naked capitalistic avarice. I coveted this pack for a while before I got my hands on it, and that memory eternally links this game with visits to my local PC World at the Silverlink Retail Park in North Shields.
PC World's biggest ever computer sale!
This is where we would go on a Sunday when my dad needed DIY supplies from B&Q or Texas. Who remembers Texas, by the way? That's not around anymore, but it was very much like B&Q.
Specials right across the store. Like 20% off selected Black & Decker power tools. All this bedroom furniture for just £100. £10 back by mail with this Volcast mower and safety plug. £10 back by mail.
I ain't old, huh?
Don't worry, Pops. We're almost across the street.
Sometimes I would be rewarded with a wander around PC World to look at all the cool stuff, and this was one of the coolest. It's weird how things like that can stick with you even after playing this game forever in lots of different ways. It's that first desire for those boxes that still resonate, and it might be an important part of why the game is on this list. Maybe.